Shalom Aleichem, everybody. We're going to be doing some Rambam today. Rambam, the Rebbe's takone. The Rebbe said to learn Rambam every day, and he said to learn one halacha, a little delve deep into it. So the Rambam is writing in the laws of eruv. How does eruv work? Midoiraisa, biblically, if you have many neighbors living in an apartment building, they could carry it. It's not a public domain. But King Solomon said that it is a public domain. And the way to get around it is to make an eruv. An eruv is to have people pick up a box of matzah, and it belongs to all of them, and they become like one happy family, and it becomes like one domain, and they could carry in the apartment building. Shnei Yisraelim, says the Rambam in the laws of eruv in the 2nd chapter, halacha Yud, the 10th halacha, that if there was 2 Jews and a Gentile living together in one apartment building, in one corridor, in one courtyard, and the 2 Jews made an eruv together, their eruv doesn't help, because you cannot make an eruv with a non-Jew because he's not obligated in the mitzvah of eruv. So he ruins it for everybody, and you can't carry in the apartment building. Actually, they have an eruv here in our city, and we have a box of matzah that every year, Erev Pesach, we pick up for the whole city, and we give it, we put it in a special shelf, and that makes the whole city of Sacramento combined. What do we do about the non-Jews living in the 20-block radius that we have here, the eruv? They can't be part of the matzah. They cannot be part of the eruv because they don't have the mitzvah of Shabbos. What do? So they went to the governor. The governor is the owner of this whole area. And they gave him a couple of dollars, and they said, rent us all the space. And that makes the eruv kosher. You could even go to the fire chief, because he's the fire chief for the whole area. Now, if someone is Jewish and he did not participate in the eruv for some reason, there is something called bittul reshus. Bittul reshus means that you give your domain, you give it up to the other people. You give up your rights. Since you give up your rights, so you're not spoiling it for the other people in the apartment building. Says the Rambam, it will not help by a non-Jew. Why won't it help by a non-Jew? We'll soon see. If the Jews give it to him or he gives it to the Jew, it won't help. Because you can't make an eruv with someone who's not Jewish or doesn't have the obligation to make an eruv. He's not obligated. And you cannot give up your domain to him or him give it up to you so you should become like one domain. You cannot do it. The only thing what you could do is, like we spoke, you have to rent from the guy his domain, and then he's like a guest with you. So then, since he's your guest, if you have a house, you invite 10 guests, you don't say you need an eruv to carry in the house, because they're your guest. If they don't live there independently, they don't ruin for you the permission to carry. Even if there were many Gentiles, they rent their reshus, their domain for the Jews, and the Jews make an eruv, and it's all good. So that's what they did here in Sacramento. They went to the governor. They gave him a couple of dollars. Or you could go to the fire chief the way we spoke. The question is, why cannot the non-Jew just give up his rights to the Jews? Why can't he just do that? Why do you have to buy it from him? Why do you have to rent it from him? So there's a phenomenal discussion. And if you look in Chazal, if you look in the writings, the rabbis wanted to have, there should be something that is called the Jewish ghetto. They want the Jewish should live together, not a ghetto, God forbid, but they want the Jewish should live together and learn from each other. So some of the rabbis said, there's brought on here from the Tosfos Shabbos, that the non-Jew will see that the Jews, if they don't not part of the eruv, they just give up the rights. Why are they giving me money? So they'll think that it's magic, that the Jew is trying to make a voodoo, a magic on them and hurt them. That's why he's giving them money to buy their property, and they won't like it. So they'll be more secluded because they shouldn't assimilate. The same, so that's question number one. Why can't a non-Jew just nullify his property? The other question is, why can't you rent from a Jew? And the only way to do it is through nullification. And a lot has been written on it, but that's how the Chazal, the rabbis, made the takona, that a Jew gives up his rights, and a non-Jew, you have to buy it from them. And we have to understand why. There's a beautiful story. It was the last blood libel in history from Mendel Bayless. There was a Jewish man who had a beautiful fabrik, a factory, and they found a non-Jew hanging from the rafters. And they said that he killed him to make matzah. It's crazy, the whole story with the matzah. Jews are told in the Bible, 8 times, thou shalt not eat blood. And why would they say such a crazy thing? Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman, who was a great rabbi, said that these blood libels happened to forgive for the sin of Joseph when they tore his coat and they put it into blood. And they told his father, do you recognize this coat? So to forgive for that. But but thank God the phenomena has stopped. But Mendel Bayless was in court. It's about 80 years ago. He's actually buried in Brooklyn, Mendel Bayless. Until today, people go pray by him because the whole Jewish world was involved with getting him freed. There was a Rabbi Mazeh. He was the chief rabbi of Moscow. And he was the rabbi taking care of the case, but the whole Jewish world was involved. And everyone gave money for his defense. And the prosecutor, who was a learned man, he knew the Talmud. The prosecutor said, I have clear evidence from the Talmud that you killed this young man. Because the Talmud says that it says in the Bible, Odom ki yomus ba'oyel, a person who will die in a tent, then everything in the tent is impure. Says the Talmud, you are called human and the nations of the world are not called human. Aha, we're not human. We're cockroaches. You kill us for the matzah. This is because it says a non-Jew doesn't make you impure in a tent. So we're not human. That's a pretty heavy artillery. And the rabbi said, let me explain you what the piece of Talmud is saying. The piece of Talmud is not saying that the rest of the world is not human, God forbid. The piece of the Talmud is saying something totally different. The piece of the Talmud is saying you are considered Odom. Odom means a man. The entire Jewish people is one person. Klal Yisrael is one. When a Jew is heard in Africa, or in Russia, or in Ukraine, or in Israel, you don't say, I live in Sacramento, I live in America, I care about America. The whole Jewish world feels the pain. And look at this court case. The whole Jewish world is pouring in money. Because we are Odom, we are one person. When the toe hurts, or the hand hurts, or the heart hurts, the whole body feels the pain. But the rest of the world is not Odom. They're human, of course, and they're very special. They were created in God's image. But they don't have this unity of Odom. This selfless unity doesn't exist, is something given to the Jewish people. And the judge accepted it. This is a very important lesson, that we are one. We find it in another halacha. There's halacha when you tan the leather for a mezuzah or for tefillin. It has to be done lishma, for the sake of the mitzvah. You can't think about something else. You have to say, I am tanning this leather to write a mezuzah on it, to make tefillin. Says the Gemara that someone who's not of the Jewish faith is not kosher to tan the leather. Because adaited in nafshi ka'ovid, he's thinking about himself. He's thinking about the salary he's making. And that renders the leather not kosher. This selfless connection beyond nature is a special gift given to the Jewish nation. That's why when it comes to the Jewish nation, they don't have to rent. They give of themselves naturally, because they could become one people. But the rest of the world, they have to have something in it for themselves. Could be that that's the explanation in the Rambam, that the Jews have the nullification and the rest of the world have renting. That could be an explanation. Have yourself a wonderful day.